Testing, testing. We're going to start out from the beginning. This is lesson book trans course 638 Army Correspondence Program, Army Dispatching. Army Dispatching AIPD. John B. Wiggins, district sales manager for Forest Products, hurried through the train gates of the central city, boarded a waiting passenger train to Crenner to express the mildly Mr. Wiggins was not best of humor at resting late and being forced to skip his usual substantial breakfast and started off. Then he having to leave the cabin of the traffic jam, particularly run along the last block of the station, and had not helped to improve his frame of mind. As Mr. Wiggins selected the seat near the front of the coach, started to move, he opened his morning paper and glanced at the headlines, but the thought was soon strayed from them. When the week sales meeting he was going to in the group he was going, and a trip was contemplated with a particular relish was only on his mind. He hadn't quite met his monthly sales quota. He could almost hear the high-pressure lecture he was certain to receive. Could he help it? And if the district was in the normal seasonal slump, anything why didn't the expense account allow to the plane trip to home office instead of slow train ride? An hour later, the Crenner jerking motion told the train was stopping. Looking out of the window, he mildly surprised to see that the stop his wharf was far out of the country, away from any town. Station Mr. Wiggins fussed. Why couldn't the railroad confine its stops so that it listed to the timetable? He saw the conductor almost before he could completely stop. In some 3 to 4 minutes, return of the coach. The conductor pulled the bell, according to the signal of the engine starting the move. Mr. Wiggins noticed after the train progressed a few yards, a square two-story building bearing the sign VO Tower. He wondered idly whether he had stopped the conductor to make a phone call to transact some other routine. Once under the way, the train soon reached maximum speed, but in a few minutes it started to slow down once more. Now what seemed to be coach lurched. The train was changing the tracks. Now Mr. Wiggins became all alert and concerned, even through the knowing about the technical side of the railroad. But he made the trip often enough to make the westbound train always traveled on the right-hand track. The track there was now entering was also reserved for the train running in the opposite direction. Why didn't it make sense? Suppose another train was approaching the opposite direction, there would be a head-on collision. This were terrible. Mr. Wiggins soon noticed the reason for the changing of the tracks, but this itself was scary, reassuring that the long freight train appeared to stop and was on the track that had just left. Even so, that he did the engineer, knowing where the safe proceed to such a speed. Had someone been told to keep the track? There were now unclear. Suppose he forgot why it was almost like a motorist speeding wrong way down one-way street. But soon the passenger train passed the head end of the halted freight and reduced the speed and crossed back into the original track. Mr. Wiggins breathed easier and still wondered. High up in an office building, and along way of the fidgety, confused traveler, man wearing a green ash shade, making some notes at the large sheet on the desk. But before him, it was caused to the train to stop at the VO Tower, taking the opposing track of the later run in the original track. Scarcely the daily pass during this doesn't be both passenger freight train. The diverge move only on any track he desires, must same as the hobbyist. With the model train having automatical track control in the daily manipulation travel. However, seldom his audience to watch marvel, sometimes worry about the consequence. Also, he is the man of the head. Through the years of train experience prevented some of the Mr. Wiggins apprehensions becoming realities, however, that is nearly so well. Now, honoredly by the traveling public and the engineer, he is the individual who is planning watchfulness, failing accuracy, provided a safe speed trip for all the trains. He is once the least known, yet one of the most important of all railroads. He is the train dispatcher. The reference of the dispatching bridges the span knowledge that would probably approach the lifetime of the practical experience at telegraphing dispatching offices. However, it avoids the aspect of the subject of each chief dispatcher disagreeing more over the condensing limits discussion in certain phases of the subject, especially where the lengthy elaboration might tend to confuse rather than enlighten the average reader. For example, complete textbooks could be written in the subject and covered in the single paragraph change of a timetable. Laws of schedule, although the reader is kept foremost in the mind throughout the 5 chapters, realize the reader without railroad opportunity experience, may not grasp all lessons, stress in first reading the text, therefore second reading the recommended, especially chapters 1, 4, and 5. These most clarify importance and make the safer, more efficient train operation. Always remember, every operation rule, every train order, every form of train order are the direct results of wrecks of wrecks that occurred before the rule, particularly when the train order existed, studied thoroughly. Principles of right, class, and direction, their ramifications, applicability to single-track railroading. When you have mastered this phase, you will be already ready to operation under any circumstances. Be remembered, the study must be also combined with the practical experience, learning the material and reference text. It does not qualify you as a train dispatcher, however, though it's acquainting the nerve center of the operation department of all railroads. The knowledge places you in the better position to understand how train dispatching can affect almost any military assignment involving rail transportation of men and supplies. The text contains 5 chapters. The first explains the principle of dispatching. The second discusses the dispatching staff and documents and forms to handle. Chapter 3 informs the dispatcher means of communication. Chapter 4 discusses train superiority, and Chapter 5 explains various forms of train orders. For Appendix 4 and 4 annexes are included. Appendix 1 is the list of reference of preparing the text, and Appendix 2 is an example of employee's timetable. Appendix 3 contains the pertinent railway operation rules. Appendix 4, the glossary of some of the terms dispatching, and Annex A portrays the single track of Englewood Division, and Annex B in the C and dispatcher record of the train movements train sheet. It's 1 from the single track, 1 of the double track, and Annex D contains the consolidated empty car report. Chapter 1, Principles. 1.1 General. During the World War, when the manpower barrel was nearly empty, a local selective service board official told that the railroad executive of the train dispatcher could easily be trained in 6 months. If the official, who was obviously knew lightly about the railroading, eliminated the word easily, it revised estimated the 6 years he would have been more nearly correct. Without doubt, in dispatch training on the busy section of the railroad is one of the most exact tasking entering transportation requests that sometimes unhappy lot of the train dispatcher, any of the rapid correcting, thinking, making instant decisions, absolutely no margin of error, lacking time the conference with the superiors, being unable to delegate decisions and to subordinates. A dispatcher needs to know the minute details of the physical characteristics of the main track layout of the division. To refresh the knowledge, he is required to ride over the division periodically. Because of the dispatcher must be able to sit at the desk, visualize what happened to the other end of the division. When, for instance, the instruction of the road conductor head at the BOT hour, pull through the cutoff and back to your head end of the river lead and cutting the road crossing. He must be immediately familiar with every detail of the area, then the location every switch crosses over and derail the instructions can be occurred. A dispatcher must have full knowledge of the capabilities of various typical locomotives and use of the frequent judge of the capability of individual locomotives. Only the number of the designator move over the frequent possesses often bases decisions on the intimate knowledge of the ability of individuals' engines to get the trains over the road. Every railroad has an engineering reputation making good time order or under on any and almost any conditions, and occasionally small numbers never seem to maintain schedules to come to reasonable exemptions despite of the good locomotive in most favorable conditions. A centralized traffic two-way of the radio communication between two engines produces other modern innovations. Train dispatching have partially taken some of the occupation strain off the dispatcher. However, the main single lead, the double track of the line still and operate with the refinements and on many roads with the normal length of the siding not to be increased with the greater train density of the past few years. The job train dispatching is more exacting than ever. Chapter 1 describes the dispatching principles of the method moving the trains of the various systems. For this time, the table of dispatch for train orders operating. The rules are explained. The dispatching method is used in single, double, and multi-track lines, and centralized traffic control method are described. 1.2 The timetable. The timetable authorized movement of the scheduled train sample. The timetable of the requisition division illustrated discussed in the text contained within the Appendix 2 shows the train in the first, second, third, and fourth classes. Their relative superiority established and designated shown with the timetable. First class of the train superior to all the others. Second class next, and so on. Extra trains inferior to all the regular trains have class designated. No inferiority exists between the extra trains. However, the timetable on the single track specifies a superior direction which decides emphasized the railway officials of the Elwood Division made the example of the text supervisor direction is east and is meant in the first class when opposing each other. The eastbound would be superior, opposing the trains traveling toward each other on a single track. Direction is superior between the regular trains only in the classes is equal. Does not apply to the two extra trains of opposing direction. Single track, thus in the section of the first class westward train is superior to the second class eastward train. 1-3 train orders. Train orders, written orders delivered to the train crew to convey the dispatcher instruction. The orders may help restrict and amend the annual speed of the class direction superiority timetable established. Chapter 4 explains there are full tool dispatchers used in operation trains not listed on the table. On an occasion, he is only using the established rules of moving the trains effectively over the division. Unusual operating problems occur. A train order, however, does not waive compliance with the rules for one train unless it instructs another crew to protect the first train. The train orders are discussed further in Chapter 5. 1-4 operating rules. Each railroad is its own set of operating rules that are based on standard code of the tailored fit to the operating needs of the particular line. Even though the rules themselves be modified and the rule number remains the same, the Rule 99 in Cincinnati means the same thing as the railroad in Iowa as it does in one in Ohio. Although the rule numbers in hundreds of the important, safe, and the efficient operation trains, the rails cover the standard timetable, signals, trains, and superiority movement of the trains and engines and train orders. Operating the rail rules of military railroads containing technical manual TM 55200 railway operation rules. A number of them are quoted in Appendix 2 to the rules of particular importance and immediately and discussed in the rules 86 and S87. The quote is discussed in the subparagraph following the note that the rules number without the letter prefix applies to single or two or track more as one with the S is to single tracks. One with the D is for two or more tracks. Rule 86. Unless otherwise provided, an inferior train will clear the time of the superior train in the same direction, but not less than 10 minutes must be cleared the time of the superior train in the same direction is due to leave the next station in the rear where the time is shown. Rules 87 provide S87, single track 87. An inferior train must keep out of the way opposing superior trains failing to clear the main track at the time required. The rules must be protected prescribed in Rule 99. Extra trains must clear the time opposing the regular train not less than 5 minutes unless otherwise provided, and will be governed by the train orders in respect to opposing extra trains. Rules 86 and S87 mean the extra trains must operate within the respective train orders timetable of the operating rules. They must proceed only until the crew's notice of the timetable of the superiority train is getting close. They must enter the sliding of the yard to clear a train. Similar with operating against the opposing superior train, the crew knows of the timetable with deciding the clear opposing train. However, if the train is certain type of the orders, they may conflict. The rules 87 and 86 and S87 with occurs the order automatically supersedes the rules. All train orders may confer superiority on the westbound train and restrict the eastbound one of the equal class. The conflicts with the superiority direction established with the timetable again, and the orders supersede the timetable. They must also grant a second class train right over a first class train. They then have superiority established in classes. The trains is set by the timetable and brief of the train orders by superseding a normal method of regulating the train movement. Other may temporarily set aside certain operation rules timetables. Therefore, train orders are last word. Authority remain in effect of fulfilled, supersede, or annul the crew actions of the fulfill the orders. Nothing more than supersedes the annual that is accepted other orders of the dispatcher. 1.5. The method of dispatching varies according to the type of the operation of the four basic types of single track, double track, multi-track, centralized traffic control, which applies chiefly to signal track. The centralized traffic control, multiple track refinements rarely entered into foreign theories. The text deals with particularly in single and double track systems. However, the centralized traffic control or multi-track operations entirely with the restriction of the reader's understanding of the subject as a whole. Therefore, the discuss not stress as much of the other dispatching methods. The remaining paragraphs in the chapter 1 various methods of discussion begins with the method of the theater operation is described. Train dispatching in the theater operation nearly differs from the commercial railroad. In the theater, the civilian operates the train and the military control them. The dispatching may remain unchanged If the passenger train services continue, however, the troop of the ambulance ammunition train will be assigned the higher priority than passenger trains. The Army advances. However, the railroad is operating the transportation railway services exclusively with military purpose for the method of dispatching train with undergoing radial dictated particular combat logistical retreatment. Enemy forces may destroy the track bridges signals, other facilities at the retard advances of the line. Whether services are resumed with formerly double-track high-speed room and automatic block signals may be signal in the track of the speed of the improved signal system. Dispatching becomes more difficult, complex, and single-track operating. Prevailing light trains carry less tonnage at lower speeds will be the rule, and circumstances will determine movement priority. 1.6 Single-track operation. Single-track operations. Dispatching is carried out when the written or train orders their dispatch instructions received over the telephone or telegraph wires. Operators, along with the line with the copy of the longhand delivery of the copies of the train engine crews with whom addresses the charter. Chapter 5 explains many types of these used to cover every conceivable situation that may ever be ever helpful and restrictive. They tell a crew when to done it over, what not to do, or never to do, never what not to do. They frequently carry to the qualifications. Basically, a first-class train depends upon the time schedule and authorization on leaving the safe starting terminal of the crew is authorized traveling along with the route accordingly published with the figures scheduled in the columns of the timetable. On a single-track line, the timetable to specify the superior direction for the east, were therefore the first-class train traveling east of the max to the Conroy. Figure 1 would be superior to all the other trains, and the crew would accept all the trains in direction clear to delay the train. A crew with the first-class train traveling west of the Conroy to the Maxi would expect all trains except for the first-class eastbound train to clear them. To clear means to get the train completely off the main track and going in the siding of the yard to a line switch on the main track. Here is the figure 1 of the Conroy to the Maxi is going west. Let's turn on its side. Extra train is not scheduled with the timetable, having no class ends with no superiority when the extra moving without the train in order than when the ones that created them. They are said to be operating in the respecting timetable. This means adhering to the provision of the rule single track 87, clearing the main track of the trains scheduled in this timetable when it's possible to clear the track of the superior. The rules require the train to protect against the movement of other trains. Do this, and flagman is sent in the direction in which the train is flagged to a stop. The double track one set in the rear and the single must be sent in the front, as well as to the one in the rear of the stop ending the trains. Rule 99 is requiring such protection of the flagging per clearing without the delay are said to be accomplished when the trains are being cleared and not stopped or delayed, as paragraph 414 explains. If illustrating on a single track if all extras on a single track could always operate with respect to the timetable, the subject of the train dispatching would be much easier to understand. Extra train, after being allowed to move out of the starting, would proceed only on its use to the timetable. The rule single set track 87, rule 87. The crews watch the crew to take the siding after the superior train passed, but the crew would again consult the timetable. They would know the exact distance of the next siding and the approximate number of the minutes the wood to take to reach. The crew would make the siding without the sticking delaying superior train that was closer, that it would proceed if it lacked sufficient time of the train in either direction of the head, or at least double doubt of their train could clear the time. The crew would remain where they were until they didn't have enough time. The extra train would travel over the divisions and head over the siding necessary, remaining over the superior train passing. It might be the possible pass the next siding, perhaps the third clear or one or more scheduled trains, or either both directions. The method just described primarily to show the principle of extra movement is seldom worse. The actual practice, the practice is being theoretical, practical, but having an account the extra trains must be generally in operating opposing direction. Regular trains have no way of knowing about the extras. Extras ordinarily do not know about the extras in the same opposing direction, therefore advised in the presence of opposing extras in the dispatcher trains. The operational difficulties occur with the dispatching train orders and effects of the scheduled superior trains. A dispatcher may assist in the inferior train, giving them help to train order with. When he does, the same order restricts the superior train, which is given to the copy of the order. Similar dispatch often is and a heavy exterior extra as an expense of the light train in the superior direction. 1-7 single track example. The single track Elwood division of the 137 kilometers long is illustrated in Figure 1-1. The various situations marked in the name of the city, the town, the call letters, and the telegraph of each of the shown parentheses. Each of that office is manned by an operator who works for the dispatcher who copies orders delivered that they are proper train crews who report arrival, departure, and passing times of the train. To condense with the information given in the paragraph 1-6, the typical example is presented and explained and discussed in detail in subparagraph. The following edition of 1-1 is duplicated in annex, cut out blocks provided and able to move the three trains. Example, exactly the specified of the train orders. The oblong blocks printed with the left illustration represent the three trains cut out with the block placed in the follows. The number 9 of the engine ENG or engine 345 can Conroy extra 420 4220 East Maxi Yard extra 9552 west along the line with the warding. Wildwood cut off the point of the block's direction in the train, a heading of the correctly in place, and the entire sheets aside where they cannot be disrupted, and continue the text. The statement of the problem assumes that the extra 9552 was west and ready for the leave of the Wild cut off the proceed of the mainline track of the Maxi number 9 of the first class train running the Conroy to the Max. See left the Conroy a few minutes before, sometimes within 5 minutes before the number 9 departure, and extra 4220 east left Maxi to order the return of the Maxi to the Conroy for the timetable conducted by the extra 9552, which was the presence of number 9 on the railroad with the must clear the train as specified in the rules single track 87 without the specific orders contrary to the left to judgment exactly where he is clearing number 9 of the glance at division map and the timetable as he has aimed at the Fairview FV would probably have the most logical place for the extra 4220 east to take a sighting permit to the number 9 to the pass, and the extra 99552 west in the picture the dispatcher must now enter the scene of his train order upon this point of the running order the extra 4220 east authorizing movement of the Maxi to the Conroy to the timetable scheduled in number 9 of the Conroy to the Maxi has been governed. Action of the dispatcher before the dispatcher can exact the extra 9552 west east of the Wildwood cut off the issue the train order established means of the train extra. The particular point is explained in stress in paragraph 2.6 and 5.15. The lesson teaches much. So never forget the dispatching train. The dispatcher calls the operators in Nelson BO and the Wildwood WD dictates the following train order extra 4220 east meets extra 9552 west the FV Fairview. The order is extra the 4220 East BO Nelson. A copy of the address of the conductor enter extra 952 to deliver the crew the Will Wildwood along the running orders authorizing the train to run the extra Wildwood to the Maxi. The order is given to the operator the Fairview under the 208 holding the order. The extra 952 West will take the siding at the meet of the train holding the main track as a paragraph 4.4. A explains. See the first move of all blocks. You are now ready to make the first move of the cutout of the division map in the annex of the movement number 9 to the list approximately position the extra 9552 west leaving Wildwood cut off not moving the extra 4220 east of the BO tower of the crew, the given and immediately the order to move the 9552 west of the sliding north of the main line Wildwood Fairview, now bringing the 42220 to the east past the westbound extra the siding advances the number 9 to the Madison, moving the extra 4220 east of the siding opposite of the Ogdensburg extra 9552 western siding of the BO tower. Explanation of the first move when the first move made in this way, when extra 422 east is arrived in the Fairview siding, they could not proceed unless the extra 9552 west was there, and the extra 9552 west arrived first to wait the extra eastbound extra. Technically, a train is not a train unless the last car of the caboose displays a rear end marker that shows the figure 1-2. Therefore, meet cannot probably be filled with the markers, and the train loses a marker. It is no longer the train. The constantly. The train cannot meet another unless it meets the marker. For example, the extra 20 east had met the marker of the extra 21 west of the arcade. The extra 21 caboose becomes detached before reaching the siding of the arcade, which would enter the siding of the rear end markers. The extra 20, the extra kit would proceed in the arcade because technically it would not meet the train's the media order that would not properly fulfill. The reason for the importance of the obvious: if the extra 20 east did, the arcade would be in danger of the colliding of the stationary caboose somewhere behind the arcade. This is a caboose. It's got the green, red, and the green lanterns on it. Move number 9 to the next is made by the number 9 moving into the pass of the sidetrack of the Adamsburg of the pass of West End westbound extra, then clear the BO tower into the maxi. Now each of the extra is free to proceed in the respective direction until the order of the time schedule of a superior train restricts. When number 9 passes the extra, 2 extra respective sidings of the presence and absence of the 2 extras, no concurrence through the crew number 9. If it holds the order to involve the extra, consequently the presence of the railroad is now the crew, the number 9. If the brief table is shown in the sample, the appendix to H of all trains, regular trains are accepted the departure time of each station. The departure train orders and notify the crews of the extra train presence opposing the extras unless other orders interfere with the restrict progress of the regular trains and the crews not given in the copies. F. The move of the extras to explain the move of the extra 9552 west to the maxi extra 4220 to the east to the convoy. One expects the advance after the meeting need the further explanation for the meet between the extras eastbound move to the Fairview of the Oban Garden siding of the authority to the rule the single track 87. Similar westbound and extra advances the Fairview siding of the BO tower under the authority of the rules 86. If the train had lacked time to confirm with the respective rule, each of them have remained in the respective Fairview siding clear to the number 9 is there. G. The relation to the actual practice, the greatly simplified example of how the dispatcher keeps the 2 inferior trains out of the way of the superior train. He progresses each of them as far as long as possible before putting it aside in actual practice. However, the division in length would be much more congested when the 5 or 6 trains are operating on a single track. The dispatcher is required to do much more planning and issue many more orders to carry out this objective. 1.8. The double track operation. When operating a double or multi-track, the dispatcher is relieving considerable strain. His advanced planning is reduced to materially. However, he is still thinking about 3 to 4 hours ahead of the chiefly about the new trains that could come out and onto the road. In the double track, one is designated, for example, westbound and the other eastbound. Noted to be deviation, the crew is permitted with the dispatcher specific orders. Since no meets are scheduled, the opposing trains are separated. He proceeds through the operating separated railroads. He is working the inferior trains, moving in the out of the way superior ones still goes on in the pairs. The double track operation quite bit simpler than the single track operation. Remember, the density track is generally 2 to 3 items greatly. Then one of the single track double track procedures are discussed in the following subparagraphs. A. Signal. Most double track lines are equipped with the automatic block signals which are possible for observing to determine if any of the trains occupy the next couple of kilometers. Many kinds of the signals are, but only position light and block signals closed used on the American railroads are discussed with the single in the name, identification, and significance in each of the aspects in Figure 1-3. Aspects of the color, position, and signal as it faces the approaching train. When the use is such, the signal is dispatched with the problem spacing the train and the progress, and none is hindered and reduce the speed of the stop of the signal of the train ahead of it. The proper training spacing, delegated phase of the dispatching. If the train gets too close to each other, the great deal of stopping occurs. The starting from the standstill requires a great deal of fuel, often delays the train excessively. Conversely, a dispatcher cannot deliberate holding trains back to the extent that the train capacity of a division were seriously reduced. This shows the shades and portions of a red and orange color. The aspect 1 is clear. Identification precedes the next 2 blocks as in clear with the straight red or orange color straight across. Then 1 and 7. Then on a diagonal between 1 and 7 o'clock. 1 and 7 o'clock are red and orange aspects and approach preceded the prepared stop. Next signal, the next block is and is the beginning beyond its occupation. Aspect 3 is a horizontal red and orange cross. That means stop. The next block is occupied. Current the traffic of the movement of the trains is on the main line direction specified by the rules of the railroad is called with the current traffic. An example to look at the figure 1-4 shows the Elwood, same of the illustrated figure 1-1. Expect the non-pictured track is double track. The traveling west of the Conroy to the Maxi, the right-hand west track of the opposing direction, left-hand of the eastward. However, because of any of the numerous operational dispatch of the dispatcher night frequently is required to run the trains against the current traffic to pass stale with the disabled train. Other than reason for the running of the westbound train over the eastward track might be rock, slide, washout ballast, or temporary removal of the rails by a section of gang. Here's once again you see the railroad with the kilometer space against it, and the siding tracks in Wildwood from the Conroy to the Towers and Maxi Yard. Reverse movement, getting the train around the obstruction running against the current traffic in a single line. Reverse movement, the first comes to the dispatcher changing operational checking section of double track to the single refer to the figure. Assume the dispatcher has an extra westbound train to dispatch halfway to Fairview and the BO. Restricted the current of the traffic with the force of the westbound movement to the pile up behind the disabled train. Instead, he looks over the train sheets and discusses in paragraph 2.5 notes that the westbound freight class train is arcade and second class of the eastbound train clearing the LY. Now normally running at that time would be put both trains in the vicinity of the obstruction approximately at the same time. Train orders: the dispatcher must know how to make the use of train orders to either delay of first class training the train out to the milling of the rings of the BO tower to dictate it to the holding orders of the second class train. The type of the called order is called the Form J order and is illustrated explained in the paragraph 520. And might cite the second class train of the train by engine number and the make and instruct the number to hold the eastbound train. The dispatcher then rings the OG, the WD, and the FV. The operator tell the standing of the direction or DR order explained in the paragraph 527, which also allows first class train to turn against the current traffic when they are ready to. He dictates order the first class train to use the eastward track of the Fairview and the BO. Although the three operators order the simultaneously, only the BO operator is responsible for delivering it to the train crew. The Fairview operator must know the provisions and orders because the train is going to cross over the eastward track at this station. Having the west Wildwood operator copy the precautions measure the telephone of the Abigad and should be the OG should there be for the dispatcher finish with the order he could deliver the first class with the train to the Wildwood or some other accord of allowed the train of the OG without getting the order of the delivering to the Wildwood. The reverse of the movement completed with the dispatcher and null the J order the BO operator transmission delivery all forms of train orders and covered in chapter 5. 19 multiple track operation. Although multiple track systems are military operations are rare in military operations, the principal operations decided pretending to teach the train dispatching logically 3 and 4 track systems and operating problems to further reduce the 4 tracks are ideally because they provide a high and low speed both in the track directions. Normally high speed tracks are outside of the permit of the passenger trains to load the station. Although the tracks are often reserved for the passenger trains, only many of the dispatcher present the extra trains, freight trains they use if they can make the passengers running time. The current traffic defined in the paragraph 1A can be regularly enforced by the road forced by the 4-track system of the 2, the assist track, and each identification, each direction the dispatcher has at least freight out of the high speed. The track is troubled if it fails from the progress expected that he could be switched back to the low speed one. The following subparagraphs point to the distinction but may not be made in the standards of the high and low speed tracks. Some railroads make a strict distinction between the standards of 2 types of the track. On the low speed, the track light of the rails use the least of the ballast. Sub-ballast maintenance performed. The tire renewal may be considerably less frequently on the high speed of the track. The track is generally designated either freight or the passenger interchangeable type. The trains is not permitted with the except in emergency continual operation. The heavy freight to the passenger track requires constant maintenance and work to keep the condition required of the given the maximum ride at the comfort. Many railroads may be distinct between the standards of the 2 type. The 2 types of the weight of the rail identical. The high is subgraded but the same. The high speed and low speed are as used described in the tracks, but the timetable would refer to the number 1 and number 2 and 3 and 4 are generally only on the time the necessary to run against the current traffic would be on both tracks in one direction, blocked or unsafe. 110 centralized control traffic. Operating the rail division controlled by the centralized control traffic may be simpler than the other methods. The dispatcher who may be many kilometers from the point of the train the crew wants to enter the track merely flips the switch on the central traffic control panel, then opens the yard switch lights on the proceed of the signal for the train. The modern centralized traffic control center panel is shown in Figure 1.5. The dispatcher does not advise the train crew of this of his plans or nor written order necessary. The track has a single facing each in the direction. There is no established current traffic in the centralized traffic controlled areas, giving the dispatcher complete the flexibility of the train movements. He may run the track either direction regardless of the class of the train, continuing moving against the head of the superior class as long as the signal tells it to do. So, whether the dispatcher wants a train stop to wait for a meeting on the opposing the train signal light shows where and when they're making the stop. When the opposing train clears the stop signal changes to proceed. Figure 1.5 dispatcher working the central traffic control simulates or system eliminates repeating, interrupting, remembering provisions of the numerous train orders. The word order they receive much as 22 hours before the time to carry out. The crews receive visual orders as if they were signal lights at the time of the point they were executed by the Rule 86 and the single track Rule 87 do not apply to the central traffic control territory. The following subparagraph discusses the central traffic control system's safety features and advantages before the discussion of billions of electronic interlocking controls are explained. Here's the picture of the operating room. Electric interlocking. Early, the central traffic is used to form railroads. The layout may extend to several kilometers on each side of the control tower, which in the interlocking is operated by the tower man. However, the control end of the track joins in the area under the control of the dispatcher tower. The work is shown in the Figure 1.6 installation generally used in congested junction terminals. Allow the dispatcher of the tower operate the flexible and handle trains, the yard movement, and the yard limits. Here's the tower operator. The control of the panel dispatch control panel has a diagram representing the track layout as shown in the upper part of the 1.5. Also, under the jurisdiction controlled by the central traffic control is shown in the panel. Small indicators mounted in the intervals along with the board of the light up and the train reaches the way of the railroad represents each of the particular indicator. The dispatcher can progress any train within its jurisdiction merely observing the lights. He can check the speed of the train timing in between two lights. As he also knows, if the train makes an unscheduled stop at losing considerable time, he can direct the train into a siding, letting it over the other end and switching the train with the eastbound to the westbound from the high to the low speed track and back again, merely to manipulating small electrical switches before him. And the engine crew never knows the exact path of the travel. They should work the distance between reaching and the divergency reduces the signal. Reduces the speed signal. However, the display is sufficiently advanced that the train of the track, given the engineering time to slow down the engine crew, relies on the permissive restrictive aspect signal automatically displayed. With the dispatcher open and closes switches ahead that they know that the track taking the route described by the dispatcher. Safety. The centralized traffic has a safety feature that makes it impossible for the dispatcher to suddenly take away the permissive route of the train if the engineering comes into the sight of the signal. Although the dispatcher can take away all of the display permissive signal flashes the restrictive signal in the face of the crew with the switch to control the track route cannot change the engineering lack sufficient time to comply with the change signal. The system so wired that the dispatch cannot set up the conflicting moves. The single track installation connected with the train is make a stop specified by the signal. Signals advance the train automatically dispatch the stop of the train may be approaching the single track but the opposite direction. Although the central traffic control system eliminates misunderstanding among the crew members and other interpretation riding the train under the misunderstandings and the account of numerous collisions on the single track. Advantage of since centralized traffic control is principally in single track. Some of the railroads have converted the double track single track layout to reduce the maintenance weight on the accelerated train schedules, resulting in central traffic control frequently permanently increase the train density because of the delay formerly caused by the weight and meat of the orders and reduce the central traffic control dispatcher frequently able to two trains given them without a stop in either one, keeping them moving in the side while the other one passes the main track if the side long enough, or a single track branch that serves in the kilometers. In double track, a dispatcher may likewise have the train pass in other same direction without reducing the speed of the either. A non-stop meet can be fully appreciated only on crews who are past years waited hours other trains by a dispatcher who are one required to dictate the several. Completed train orders of the central traffic control may often be done with less delay, the dispatcher moving 2 to 3 controls. 111. Summary. The division timetable authority moving schedule trains establish the superior direction of the example first class trains and superior to second class unscheduled train extras inferior to schedule ones have no class designated. Superior direction is decided in the line of official train crews to receive the train orders dispatched to supersede the superiority established by the timetable operating the rules of both civilian and military as our base and standard code to provide the safe and efficient train of the operation rule 86 and standard track single track 87 covered place for the following extra trains. The four methods of dispatching are single double track multiple track central traffic control signal track dispatching conducted using written train orders to the crew to do this and complicated than the double track dispatching. Later, it depends on mainly automatic block signals, proper spacing of the train. However, the dispatcher must enforce the established current traffic except for the single lining of reverse movement is called for train orders or to use or avoid a delay to opportunity trains. Operating problems are further reduced in multiple track, especially where the four tracks high end of the tracks for direction designated, but some roads may strike the distinction between the high and low end of the tracks, lighter rail being used and the roadbed maintenance being performed on the later on other lines might make the distinction between two of the rail ties and subgraded but are the same. Centralized traffic is the simplest, most method of dispatching, providing the dispatcher greatest flexibility in manipulating train. Small indicator of the control panel comes in the train reaches this particular point to the line. The light indicator of the permanent the dispatcher to track the train to progress, the speed, and by flipping a switch on the panel, the dispatcher of the train proceeds the signal on diverting to another track. The system satisfies the dispatcher cannot conflict. The restrictive signals flash in the crew's face cannot that cannot be complied with, that there is too little time. Another thing that some systems advantage is to reduce the maintenance of way costs. Accelerated freight train schedules increase the train density at times last delay because of the fewer and wait and meet orders. Chapter 2 Documents and Staff.